We're going to get started this morning, and feel free to make sure that you partake in our light continental breakfast and enjoy. Okay, so I would like to introduce the one and only fearless leader, Dr. Janelle Jamerson, and yes, our fearless leader of the Flint Center for Educational Excellence, Dr. Janelle Jamerson. Thank you for being here.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Again, I'm Janelle Jamerson. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the president and CEO of the Flint Center for Educational Excellence, and just really grateful for each of you being here today for this extremely critically important conversation. We at the Flint Center have a vision of a future where every child in Flint thrives. That's regardless of their family income, of their disability status, of the school that they attend. And we believe that that can happen if every child is loved by a thriving family, if they're supported in a thriving community, and that they're educated in a thriving school. We believe that this conversation on special education and learning supports is so critical to ensuring that vision, and we're so excited to be joined today by an expert panel sharing perspectives from across a number of different backgrounds, helping to add color to this conversation. If this is your first time engaging with the Flint Parent Collaborative, we ask you to join us for this first in a number of conversations as the collaborative is working to take action on ensuring that every child, those with special needs and learning supports included, have what they need to thrive. If you're back and continuing to participate with the Parent Collaborative, we welcome you back and we thank you for your advocacy. Again, thank you so much for being here, and we're excited to start this conversation. I'll pass it back to Sharice.
And I won't go any further. I definitely would like to pass the mic to Miranda so she can share a little bit of her story and then also introduce the panelists for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Sharice. Isn't she lovely? I love Miss Sharice. Okay, so as she said, I am Miranda Mans. I'm a community school director, a mother, a grandmother, a Flintstone, born and raised and a graduate of Flint Northern High School. I am also a parent with a student with an IEP. So I understand the struggle from both ends as an educator and as a parent. So it is a pleasure to be here with you all. I'm happy to be here to discuss this very important issue of our families who have students with IEPs. This is very important. We need to continue having conversations, meaningful conversations, but coming up with those strategies to help our students thrive and help the parents thrive. So ultimately, the community and the city of Flint will thrive. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and give you some bios on our wonderful panelists we had here. I'm so thankful and grateful that you all were able to make it. And I'm going to start off with Senator Cherry, a University of Michigan graduate with a bachelor's degree in natural resources and environment and a master's in public policy. Cherry brings much knowledge to his legislative responsibilities. He resides in Flint with his wife, daughter, and son. Senator John Cherry, a dedicated advocate for working families, is currently in his first term in the Michigan Senate. As a chair of the Labor Committee and an effective member of the Appropriations Committee, he tirelessly works to lower costs for working families, safeguard our natural resources, and strengthen our infrastructure. When families face less financial stress, parents are more able to stay engaged in their child's education, like attending individualized education program meetings, also known as IEP meetings. Next on our panel, we have Dr. Joyce Ellis-McNeal. Dr. Ellis-McNeal is a prominent leader in Flint, Michigan, serving as president of Flint Board of Education, elected to the board multiple times. She represents the community's enduring commitment to educational excellence. As president, Dr. Ellis-McNeal's vision is to cultivate a transformative educational landscape within the Flint diversity, and spirit of Flint. The Flint's district's mission is clear: to build a future where every student is equipped with tools, skills, and knowledge needed to reach their fullest potential. State Representative Jasper R. Martus is serving his second term, representing 69th House District. Representative believes in the importance of representing the people he serves. His family and faith have instilled in him a commitment to helping others. This outlook is shaped by the hardworking and dedicated people of his community. His priorities include creating jobs to promote a flourishing economy, improving infrastructure in the community to ensure reliable travel for work and leisure, and advocating for Genesee County children by promoting an education system that prepares young people to get ahead in the modern economy. All right, we got two more people on our panel. Mr. William Stegel. Stegel? Yes. Stegel. He is a proud husband to Laterica Stegel and devoted father of 7. He is an active and engaged parent at Brownell STEM Academy, Elmer A. Knopf Learning Center, Southwestern Classical Academy, and Genesee Early College. Mr. Stegel is currently enrolled at Delta College, where he is pursuing a degree in early childhood education and a paraprofessional certificate. Give it up. A Flint resident for the past 4 years, he is originally from Arkansas. Mr. Stegel values being a part of Flint Community Schools, noting that the district strives to empower parents with the tools and support needed to help their children succeed in school. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Steve Tunnicliff. Dr. Steve Tunnicliff serves as superintendent of the Genesee Intermediate School District. He has been appointed to the state's Early Childhood Investment Corporation Executive Committee and currently serves as president of both the Michigan Association of Intermediate School Administrators and the Michigan Autism Council. Dr. Tunnicliff's extensive educational background, leadership experience, and professional expertise have established him as a highly respected leader in the field of education. And that's our panel. And on that note, we will begin our discussion with special education services, impact, and disparities. Dr. Tunnicliff, just a little background. The Genesee Intermediate School District provides countrywide special education programs, staffing, and related services so that students with disabilities can access a free, appropriate public education. At the same time, we know that there are significant limitations in special education funding from both state and federal sources. So, Dr. Tunnicliff, this is a 3-part question. Could you tell us more about the services GISD provides for students with special needs? That's the first part.
Well, I want to be, if I could take a little bit of liberty, I thank you for, apparently you spoke with my mom on the bowel. But I'm not the president of the Autism Council at the state level, but I do represent K-12 educators on that council, and I'm proud to do that. I also wanted to just share, and I always do in groups like this, I'm also more important than any of those things. I'm a proud father of 3. Our oldest son was diagnosed with autism back when he was 2.5 years old. So in terms of the conversation, I share some lived experiences with many of you in the room. So I think that's probably the most important piece. So the Genesee Intermediate School District, like most ISDs across the state, one of our roles and responsibilities is to help oversee the implementation of special education services countywide. So we do not run local districts. Sometimes people believe that we do. We do not. But we do support local districts, particularly in the area of special education. So we are able to hire and retain individuals who are specialized in areas such as autism, where there are teacher consultants that can come out and provide supports, whether it's the professional development that some were mentioning, and then also at the IEP table. so that we have specialists in areas where maybe every district doesn't have a specialist in a particular area. Another key area would be ancillary services. So not every district has occupational therapists, physical therapists, um, literacy specialists. So we obviously help to support that countywide. But at the end of the day, that role from a special education standpoint is to provide some guidance and support. But then in addition to that, that support countywide, we run, which is not completely unique across the state, but in Genesee County, we run the what are called center-based programs. And so there are about 1,000 students across our entire county, across all of our communities who are most impacted by their particular disability. And those students are served at 4 of our different locations of center-based programs. So Elmernoff Learning Center, Marion Krause Instructional Center, the Transition Center for our older students, and then our early childhood programs and services. Those programs are, again, for students whose needs cannot be met at the local district level or in some of our regional programs, and are highly, highly specialized programs that we're absolutely proud to be able to serve students and families in. So we have that support role, that oversight role, where as an intermediate between the state and the local districts, particularly around special ed. But then we also have the operational role of proudly serving children and families each and every day.
All right, don't give it up yet, because he got 2 more to
Oh,
go.
I forgot. I'll be brief.
So from your vantage point, what systemic changes are needed to better serve your students over at their GISD?
So I think we should keep in mind a couple of things, and I try to remind myself of this as well. For those of us who are a little bit older and grayer, we might remember that years ago, 30 plus years ago, when we went to school, we often knew of a special ed room that was down there. And maybe you walked by that room, maybe you didn't. Thankfully, across the nation and across our communities, we've changed that mindset. We've added inclusivity and we value that. And we have more and more and more children who are impacted by disabilities whose needs are being met with their neurotypically developing peers. That's a success story. That's a success story here and across the nation. But with that success story comes challenges. Challenges that I heard many of you mention, I have continued to live, and that we know about each and every day. And so that training and support that's needed, and that constant reminder that we need to do everything we can in that least restrictive environment, meaning where kids are with their buddy across the street that they could go to lunch with, that they can grow up and live with. We need to do everything we can to meet those needs there, as opposed to going to another place. Because every time we do that, a child loses another opportunity to be engaged with their neurotypically developing peers. And that's a real challenge. The other challenge is if we don't do that, we don't do that well, we overwhelm a system that really is in place to serve the highest needs of students. And that's obviously the needs that we serve in our center-based programs. And so when I look at the system as a whole, we need to continue to fight for inclusivity, meeting the needs of children, and that's something to champion, but that is hard work, because as I already heard many of you mention and many of us live, it's a new challenge every day. Often what we say is, if you know a child with a disability, you know a child with a disability. That's it. You don't know how to fix or support every single student because every student's different. So that requires a lot of hard work, a lot of training, a lot of support, but it's something that we can and should continue to champion.
Well, thank you, Dr. Tunnicliff.
Sure.
All right. Now, the Flint Community Schools serves a higher proportion of students with special needs, nearly twice the Genesee County and statewide averages. According to the Autism Alliance of Michigan, Gaps in proficiency exist when students with special needs and students in general education on state assessments, with students in special education scoring 27 to 32% lower on average. So, Dr. McNeal, this is a three-part question too. As the president of the Flint Board of Education, what role do school boards play in addressing these disparities?
Wow, good afternoon. Everything that we discussed here today, the burden of everything we need starts at the school board. And that question was, what role do school boards play in addressing these issues? The first role that a school board play is having a high functional board. That's what's the first role for me in leading the board, is make it high functional so we can hear your concerns, so we can address your concerns. Being said all of that, what the board had to do was look outside of the box to see what we can do different. We can no longer sit in the same place and keep doing the same thing, getting the same results. So as a school board leader, we got with my boards and stuff, we would travel around and see what other district was doing. We adopted a board consultant, Dr. Tracy Davis. And the biggest role for the school board is your academic. So we had to learn how to read data and understand data. So we began to track data. The data shows that after kindergarten, and we use color codes because numbers don't mean nothing to people like myself. So the data shows that in kindergarten, the kid was in the green. When they left kindergarten, they got it into the red. First grade in the red, second grade in the red. The state of Michigan looks at those third grade MSTEP 1 tests. And that kid went from green to red pretty much all the way up through the 9th grade. So the board, in my opinion, we failed the district because our role is the great outcome of the school. But if you don't understand data, how could we get to those results? So doing this academic data analysis, we began to track data. So we have implemented, coming up in our strategic 2027, is the K through 12th grade graduation initiative. And the imagination is that your kid is going to get their diploma in kindergarten. Graduation starts in kindergarten. And these are the criteria for your kid to get their signature on that diploma. We no longer would sit back and hold our hands and say, Jack is in the 9th grade. Because if Jack couldn't pass the 3rd grade, guess what? He's going to be in 3rd grade in the 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th. It is our board responsibility to put in the tools, the necessary tools to make that happen. Then we also analyzing data, which we haven't never done before, the KPI. MDE said that KPI is 1%. The board has the authority to say, no, that's a low expectation. And only one kid out of the class has to be proficient. So we're going to look at our strategic plan and change that KPI. Also, what we're going to do is look at other ways as we begin to sit at the table with John Cherry, Gary Peters, and all of these guys. One thing about special education, that's a bipartisan issue. So we can work with the Republican and the Democrat. That's one thing they do agree on. Am I correct? So what we can do is that, hey, let's look at initiatives that, could we look at Title I? We had all this ARPA money to come in through Title I, but it has so many restrictions. But if we could take Title I and use Title I to help with special education teachers, help pay our teachers a little bit of money, we need smaller classroom. Let's not deny that. We need smaller classroom. That's the board and working with our superintendent. And we functional now. We are high functional and we got great partnership. We're going to have to get our heads together and say, hey, let's look at how we do Title I. Because we got all of these plans in here, but we still need funders for these plans. So that is the role of the board. Everything that you say here, the board has the duty to try to make sure those things happen. We need more teachers. We need smaller classroom. We did renovation that is beautiful. We're trying to get a brand new high school. We hired an academic, a professional, Dr. Wanda Cook Robertson, creating these academic that meet the child at what they're at. My biggest problem for me right now is parenting involvement. And if we don't get these parents involved, and so that means I'm gonna have to be boots on the ground. We're gonna have to be boots on the ground. We're looking at now is creating a pilot program, parenting university probably at New Jerusalem. That's what I'm thinking. But we got to go to where the problem is. The question is, who is in the room? The people that need to hear this is not in the room, which is the parent. So this is what the board, we have a community relation. The board hears you. We are the what? Superintendent is the how. And my job is to make sure the superintendent is successful and meeting the needs of the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. McNeal. We appreciate you. Thank you for showing up and speaking on thankful work. Our next topic of discussion is parent advocacy and rights. Woo. Under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, parents are empowered by key legal rights, such as participating in meetings, reviewing records, obtaining an individual evaluation, giving or withholding consent, receiving prior written notice, and pursuing due process if they disagree with decisions. This advocacy for their child and collaboration with educators is critical to ensuring students with disabilities thrive academically and socially. So this is a 3-part question to Mr. Stiegel. Could you share your experiences in navigating the special education system as a parent?
Okay. Like I said, I'm from Arkansas. I've been here 4 years. Unfortunately, it was kind of frustrating a little bit, but I understood the process that you have to go through. Even though we were coming here with 2 students that have IEPs and come from a center basis, it's a process you have to go through. It ended up taking 2 years to get my students enrolled in school, period. We came in the end of 2022 and they finally got enrolled in 2024. But it's more to offer here. And I always tell people here, I understand you've been here all your life, but coming from a place where a lot of those support systems aren't in place is not big enough for a lot of that stuff. So other than the initial part, you just gotta keep it and only speak as a parent. Like I said, I have 7 children. The oldest is 24, with the youngest being 9. So I'm not like, this is what the teacher needs to do. This is what the board needs to do. You have to be a parent. That's first and foremost. If you're not a parent at home, they're gonna struggle at school, period.
Thank you so much for that. The next one is, what aspects have you found to be encouraging or inspiring?
It's a lot of encouraging things. This right here, to begin with. Like I said, where I come from, this does not happen, you know. Our local officials, our state officials, we don't see them. And for you guys to have a community where you can ask a senator or a representative to come out to an event, you should be encouraged by that. I mean, I understand everything isn't how you want it to be, but it starts again with the parent. I appreciate all of those attributes, but first and foremost, I'm a parent. So I know if sometimes we have to ask that hard question, how concerned are you really about your child? And what are you really willing to do to see that they succeed? You know, they only have them 8 hours at best at school. And unfortunately, we have a lot of parents. You know, I can only talk to parents and I can only be honest because I am a parent. Sometimes we're just looking for a break. You don't get a break from that. You forfeited that break. You know, they didn't ask to be here, you know. So, you know.
Thank you so much for that. What improvements would you like to see to better empower parents in their role as advocates for their students?
I would like to see the parents get educated on the programs that's available. Sometimes you have to meet each parent on their level. Everybody's not on the same level, whether it's educational level. If the parents don't know, the kids are going to struggle, you know. So if you meet them at their level and just be a parent, if it'll improve. You can't put it on I'm not going to put it on the teachers. Not that I don't trust them or whatever, but I see my child every day. I know what my child needs because I pay attention to them, you know. And that's the big thing. You have to pay attention to your kids instead of just sending them to a building and expect them to perform. That's not going to happen.
Thank you. That part. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. You know, you over there at Brownell. I used to be at Brownell. I'm going to tell Valerie Newman, that's the community school director over there, that I'm going to borrow you for our fee and so yeah. Thank you so much for that. All right. Our next topic of discussion is state level policy and funding. Yes. Now, Senator Cherry, as a key leader in the Michigan legislature, you've supported progress for students statewide, including increasing the foundation allowance for schools by nearly 24% from $8,111 in 2019 to $10,050 today. This is a two-part question. Could you share an update on the important work happening at the state level to ensure all Michigan students with special needs thrive?
I'm lucky you used the entire time in the legislature as opposed to, just 1 year. I think we made a lot of progress in terms of school funding. I think what is more legislators are starting to understand is that it doesn't cost the same amount to educate every child, right? And I think that's a key thing that we need to realize in how we fund education. So over the past number of years, we aren't at a weighted funding formula yet, but I think we've taken strides towards recognizing that. And this past year, I'll say we had a little bit of challenges between the two chambers, and this is not a challenge with Representative Martus. The way that we have tried to increase special education funding, in the last budget, we increased it in 1 year, 9.4%, our special education allocation, is what we call a categorical. So you have your per pupil funding, the $10,000 roughly dollars that goes to each district on a per capita basis. But that doesn't recognize that some districts, like the Flint community schools, have a higher proportion of special education kids, and that means it costs more to educate those kids. They need greater supports. And so we have these dollars that don't go out on a per capita basis. They're with the state, and it goes out based on need for special education. Well, in the House budget, they attacked categoricals as, I forget what the speaker said, but it's trying to put them all together. Yeah, waste, fraud, and abuse, and we need to dump everything into per pupil allocation, which bumped that per pupil allocation, but ultimately special education kids would lose in that scenario. Now, in the final deal that came out, those categoricals did not get eliminated, and we were able to increase it. And that's been an emphasis, I know, with Representative Martus myself, on doing that. But ultimately, I think we actually need to get to the point where we have a true weighted formula so that these arguments over what really are semantics, really, and it's about I'm going to get you from a political sense. If we have a weighted formula, I think it kind of filters out some of that politics in how you fund education. So, that's progress. Increase in special education categorical, I think, is important. I think we need to do it again this coming budget. We also need to get the budget done sooner. One of the other pieces that happened recently as well, and much kudos to my colleague Senator Irwin, was a champion, was the passage of the dyslexia law, which when fully implemented, it takes a number of years to get fully implemented, really is going to ensure that K through 3 kids get regular screening for dyslexia reading.
That is awesome.
And then also adding science of reading into the curriculum, right? Which is going to be critical for a lot of students. So those are, I think, two big pieces. Those are two good pieces. I would say one piece that I'm not happy about. And that is, in the most recent budget, we eliminated the state support for the Great Start Collaborative programs that the state was giving out to Great Start Collaborative programs across the state. Now, there's still local funding that goes to that, but I think that was a step backwards because those are really, I think, critical for helping those kids at the earliest stages get the interventions that really make a difference across a lifetime. And that's something I think we need to try and get reversed in the next budget.
Okay, awesome. So what can parents, schools, and community members do to ensure students with special needs have what they need to succeed? What can we do?
Each legislator comes from a different background, right? And there's 110 representatives, 38 senators, and some are going to have interaction on issues that you are deeply familiar with on an everyday basis, and some aren't. You best know what the gaps in issues that your family and your community members face. Having that conversation with your legislators and educating them so they understand what's happening within their communities is absolutely critical. When you are a legislator, you don't just deal with education. You don't just deal with special education, right? You are dealing with, dozens and dozens and dozens of issues in a given week. And you're not going to be an expert on any of them, but you guys are the experts. And when you have community members giving you that feedback, that's how you get to make better decisions as a legislator, by having those people come and talk to you and then listening and trying to understand what's going on and then reflecting that in the actions that you take in the legislature. So making sure that you understand that legislators, we might have pieces of policy that we're very knowledgeable about, but the vast majority of policy, we're all generalists, okay? And so just like educating the general public, that's kind of how you have to approach legislators too. Don't assume they know everything about your issue, because they don't. And providing that education is what's going to be critical in making sure that they're making better decisions when they're Lansing.
Okay, so when we go down to Lansing with the Parent Collaborative, y'all need to come with us. Sign up for the Parent Collaborative because we go down to Lansing on Advocacy Day and we go and meet with people like Senator Cherry and the other policymakers. And we can make our issues known at that time because like he said, they're generalists. They don't have a clue what we're struggling with down here. So Parent Collaborative has made a way for us to come together and go and make our issues known at the Capitol, Lansing. So let's do that. Sign up for the Parent Collaborative. You don't have to come to every meeting. Some of them are virtual, but come because we got to start somewhere. We can make a difference. Little steps are worth something. They're valuable. Just take that step. So let me get back to my job. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate you. Let's give it up for all my panelists so far. They're not done, they'll be all over. All right, so Representative Martus, during your time in the Michigan legislature, you have supported key initiatives for students with special needs, including the expansion of pre-K for all, literacy screening deals addressing dyslexia, supplemental school aid, funding specifically for special education classes. This is also a two-part question. Building on Senator Cherry's remarks, what additional steps do you see as critical at the state and local levels to help students succeed faster and ensure fair access to a quality education?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having us and just building on what Senator Cherry was talking about. He's a little bit modest. I really don't think that those first increases that we saw in special education funding would have happened without his advocacy. And so I just kind of want to underscore that, at the end of the day, when we work out the appropriations process, there's really no one name attached to certain programs, but in that sense, we're really lucky to have him advocating for that.
Come on, Secret Weapon. Yeah.
When we talk about education, though, it's very frustrating because it's one of the very few issues that you can talk about where the folks that are most getting impacted have the least say. and that's the kids and that's the parents. So when we talk about, you know, businesses or healthcare, you know, there's a lot of folks at the table who can advocate for themselves, but we're talking about a whole group of people that really can't advocate for themselves. And that's what makes it very frustrating. And we need a lot of the statewide leaders and the folks that have been around for a minute. We need them to have the humility to admit what all of us in this room know, which is that the system doesn't work. When some folks are presented with these numbers of where we rank, of where we need to do better, you know, they'll try to poke holes in it. And the reason why is because they don't want to change the current system. They don't want to admit that things aren't where they need to be. That doesn't mean that we haven't made progress, but I think in education and politics, in any aspect of life, if you feel that we've done enough, then you need to move on to something else, because we need to keep doing the work. So I think you are starting to see in Lansing folks recognize what we know here, that this system isn't working. And that means getting us to a point kind of where we were at, I think, with mental health a few years ago, where we're getting on with other issues, where everybody is acknowledging that there's a problem. So let's agree upon that. And then let's have the discussions of what are we going to do about it. So I think that the role that we could play in Lansing is really try to get creative. You know, Senator Cherry and I had this conversation a few weeks ago where you saw the state of Mississippi, of all folks, really boost their scores. And we're trying to dive into that data and see, you know, where are the things that we can learn from that? Where's maybe some smoke and mirrors? But there's got to be something that we could do better. Because when you look at where we're ranked, when you don't even, you know, here's the thing, you don't need to see the rankings, because we know that our kids deserve better. We know that parents deserve better. We're living that day in and day out. So I think the role that everybody here can have is holding our feet to the fire, that we're advocating for this and making sure that folks are not just accepting the status quo.
Right. Well, Sharice, you did give everybody question, didn't you? Because y'all covered it. You guys are awesome. I need this panel every time. All right, our final topic of discussion is action recommendations. This question is addressed to all panelists, after which we will open the floor for our attendees to ask questions. As we wrap up, what is one concrete action you would urge local policymakers, educators, parents, or community members to prioritize today to ensure students with special needs not only access education, but truly thrive?
There was a multi-question there. One of the things that I've been noticing as a board, that is the way that fundings come down. And it was very hard for a board to make decisions where you have so much restriction in that Title I. And we've been doing that same thing over and over. I would like to see someone advocate that. Let's look at how lift some of the restriction, whereby we can make better decisions and not keep, you can only buy so many iPads and I mean, with the last restriction, iPads, and they don't need them. They don't need them all. They need books and pencils.
Yeah.
Also, what we're also looking at is that I would like to see our teachers and principals travel offshore to other schools, high performers, or schools that was low. I took the Mississippi tour. My board members, we went to the Mississippi tour. That school was closed down twice. We hired the gentleman that was part of it called Green Education. And we're waiting on MDE to approve him, his organization, to bring him here to Flint. So we got to invest more money in principals and teachers traveling, getting out there, meeting other people. The parenting, to me, is the key to everything, and that's a passion. I know what single parents like. I know what poverty like. And I said that let's get out here and get these parents together and get involved in it. Just send it to them. They held their job. Let's look at this Title I. Flint is unique. Let's just face it. Smaller classroom, of freedom in our Title I money. We have great partnership working on us, the Mott Foundation, GISD. We have everything we need. What we don't have is enough funding, smaller classroom, and a community that need to know how to love each other and embrace the good work that we do have. I think that'll help the public school. We need students because 10,500 going outside to everybody else, and the kids have to come back to us. So we need promotion of what we're good things we're doing, and let's embrace partnership. Thank you.
So I just want to extend some gratitude to the president and superintendent. The Flint School Board has been going a great trajectory. And the fact that you guys are going out and saying, what are other places doing that are being successful? What can we do to change here in Flint and move in that direction? For folks who might not be aware, and the school board has reached out to Representative Martus, myself, advocated to get dollars for the high school.
All right, good job.
You know, it's our superintendent as well. They've been very active in communicating the issues that they need us to address. And we've tried to be responsive as we've heard those issues. Just so we make sure we can clarify, we're talking about Title I funding. Is what we're saying that those dollars can't be used for instructors and the restrictions on it need to be loosened so you could use it for putting people in classrooms to teach.
Okay, like I said, I understand policy, funding, and school boards. All of that is important. It's important, but none of that works if you don't educate your children at home. If you don't teach it, it's not really that hard. If you just take the time to look at what your kids doing, listen to them. I mean, all of that other stuff will work itself out. So like I said, if you're concerned, you'll apply the right pressure in the right places to get stuff changed, but you have to be concerned. You know, nothing's, they can make a million policies, they can fund it to the end of the world. If you don't send those kids to school prepared, they're not gonna be successful. And that's just the bottom line. I don't mean to harp on parents, but that's just it, you know. If you don't parent, it doesn't work.
I'm calling Newman. You coming to my center.
So I would just say very quickly, when you knock doors running for office, you hear about a lot of issues. When you're working at the state level, sometimes there'll be federal issues. There's not a lot that we could do. But the amount of times that I heard that sentiment knocking on doors saying, these kids don't have any home training, we need to build that relationship. And so that's a real sentiment. And if there's that kind of the situation where you're just, you know, kind of listening to the struggle of these parents. But if there are ideas for how we can help with that, again, that's a real sentiment that we hear on doors. If there are policy suggestions or how to fix that, let us know.
I just think, you know, we as community members, we do need to just learn how to love each other, because as hard as it is to get our students who are special needs to get a diagnosis, who knows if their parents went undiagnosed? Everybody's dead. They're not responding to letters we send home because they can't read. And they need to love on them and find out what the issue is so we can help them. They're not getting helped because we're missing a piece to the puzzle. So we just gotta treat people how we want to be treated. I just have to throw that in.
I would just offer a couple quick things, hopefully, to simplify a really complex conversation. It's not perfect. I'm going to be the first one to say it before you throw anything at me. But the sooner that we can all get kids in front of high quality educators, or whether it's early on programming, whether it's GSRP programming, Head Start programming, the sooner we can get children in front of adults that can be identifying developmental delays, and obviously pediatricians have a critical role in that, but we can't give up on that, because again, it's not going to fix everything, but that I believe is one of the quickest ways we can better identify children with developmental delays earlier. And the earlier we make those identifications, the earlier we can start working towards mitigating some of the impacts of whatever is challenging that child and the family as a whole. It's not perfect, but we can't give up on it. I think that's critically important. And I think it's consistent with what Mr. Stiegel's saying is we need, I am a parent, I'm an educator, and going through the process, I felt like I didn't know what was going on either. It's a different seat to sit in. And so I understand the challenge of that, but if there's one thing you can do, you can absolutely never give up and keep pushing for your child and what they need and deserve in partnership with whoever it is that you're trying to support your child with, not in opposition, but in partnership. I think the other thing I would say on the funding piece, just to simplify it, I say this to anybody that will listen, when you fund special education, you fund every child. Let me say that again and explain why. When you fund special education, you fund every child. If we take the approach that we want to fund special education because my child has a disability or whatever, that is, I think, the wrong approach. We need to recognize the truth, and the truth is that it does cost more to educate a child in special education. And because of that, in Michigan, we have huge gaps in funding. And when we have huge gaps in funding, it doesn't matter if it's Flint or Genesee County, any part of the state. When that gap exists, the federal law says, I don't care how much money it costs, you will fund the needs of the IEP. That's what the federal law requires. And so dollars will be spent to meet those needs. Well, that means there's fewer dollars to meet all the other needs. All the other needs that are going on in the school, whether it's gifted and talented programs, whether it's more books, whatever it is that you think might be something that you really want to see. People don't understand that gap, every time that gap exists, and it's significant in Michigan, that means there's fewer dollars for every kid. So it's not a special education issue. It's a special education funding. If that doesn't meet the absolute need of the IEP, then those dollars are coming out of general education programs. And so if you're talking to people and they don't believe in the moral imperative, which I think you're all here because you do, we do, but if they don't, you need to tell them the reason your child doesn't have, maybe the gymnasium that you want them to have to play in or the uniform that you want, it's because every time we underfund special education, we underfund education. So we need to simplify that mantra.
Y'all learned something today?
So pay attention to my friends in Lansing. These two are supportive. I could say that publicly. But we need to pay attention because if we just say things like roll up all the money, that does not help our community.
Yes.
We need to fund special education at the level it should be from the federal government on down. We're in the 50th anniversary of the federal law that protects children with disabilities. And that law required a 40% funding of special education costs. And right now we're funding at 11% from the federal government. So it literally starts from the top down, but we need to pay attention to those things. And again, funding special education funds education, period. And the last thing around, it's a real issue around finding educators to go into special education. And the people in this room help to control that. If I'm an educator and I'm telling my own children and my friend and their children, you don't want to go into education.
Come on.
Because you got to deal with this or that. Or if you're a parent and you're telling your child, do anything other than education, then we're leading to what we're living right now. People aren't going into education because of what they've seen and lived in their own homes and in their own communities. And we see this in early childhood. We want and need people who want to be early educators in our community, educating our kids. And so we can help to solve some of these problems. We have to encourage our community members and then our own children. Education's important. And if it's your gift, consider it. Yeah, there's a lot of challenges with it.
Right.
But if we just keep talking about the challenges, we're just going to continue in this circle of not having anybody go into it. So we can help champion our own cause.